The Barretto, Beloy Beach area are interesting areas. It's part of Olongapo, the fairly large city of Olongapo, well over 200,000 people. But here in Barretto and Beloy, we're isolated from the rest of the city because of the mountains and bay. There's a narrow strip of land here where the barangay of Barretto is, where Beloy Beach is also located. So this makes this area like a small town all within itself, a separate little town. It seems like a little town except for the busy highway. That reminds us that this is an area with a lot of people on either side of Barretto. But there are lots of interesting things that go on here because it's a tourist town. There's a lot of nice restaurants because of hotel restaurants and standalone restaurants. A lot of businesses come and go, which makes it interesting. Even during COVID, the worst business climate in the modern history, with the lockdown and no tourists coming to town, new businesses still open. Unbelievable. And now with high inflation and tourists not coming back as before, tourism is still way down compared to pre-COVID years. That's not stopping businesses from opening up. It's amazing. More and more are opening up all the time. You just never know what's going to happen. So it makes it very interesting. Now in this video I'm going to cover things that almost happened, that didn't happen, things that happened that are surprising, little interesting things about Barretto and Beloy, just things at random that might be of interest. So here we go. Subic Bay now falls under the category of what is now was not in the future, and that is the lack of large ships. There's not one large ship in the bay. For people who were here during World War II, Vietnam, post-Vietnam, up until Pinatubo and the military leaving, this is a very strange sight indeed. It would be mind-blowing to the people who were here in the past years when the bay was full of big ships. It even looks weird to me and kind of eerie, knowing the history, though I was not here during those times when the ships were here in mass. 8 years ago when I arrived, there were always at least 1 or 2 or 3 big ships in the bay. There was a shipbuilding company that was busy right over there, Hanjin, which by the way is going to start up again this year. I believe that they have some plans of reopening. But there were ore transfer ships out there for several years after I moved here, and that business ended. What you see now is what did not exist years ago. A project that was planned, a very big project that is in the past, but it's not going to happen, was right here next to Beer Garden, which used to be Sit-in Bowl. In this lot right here, a high-rise hotel was going to go in, a 10-story with restaurant and swimming pool at the top level, 10 stories high. My God, unbelievable. But that project was canceled prior to COVID. I don't think their pre-sales were good. They were trying to pre-sale condos and rooms, condos that could be a hotel or a condo. You could rent them out like Airbnb sort of rental things, or stay in them yourself. They were expensive. I forget what they were. A couple hundred thousand US dollars for a studio apartment, I think, and maybe it was around 300 something for a one bedroom apartment. It was something pretty hefty, especially considering that this is on a side street on the opposite side of the highway from the bay, so it's not beach property. That detracts from the price, I would think. The price would be less for that. It's for sale now. 15.5 million pesos firm. Wow. A lot of money. That sign's been up for about a year at least. It's been for sale for a couple of years. For being this far away from the bay would have been a problem. Not worth the money, I don't think. So it was lucky, really lucky, that they didn't build after all. It would have been a disaster. This was the first high-rise building, 7 stories. Up until this one, the Central Park Reef Hotel, 3 stories or 4 stories was the limit. So this was a surprise. Another high-rise was planned, another one as big as this hotel. Business owner told me a couple years ago that by the sea right next door that planned on a high-rise hotel on this property right here. Let's see, I got to get over this wall. This is where a high-rise hotel was planned for a while anyway, but that was before the pandemic. So obviously those plans got canceled. Wouldn't that have been something? There would have been a total, if all plans worked out, there would have been 3 high-rise hotels for the skyline here in Barretto. Wouldn't that have been something? One thing about the Philippines is construction can take very little time or take a long time, like years. Sometimes projects are abandoned and never finished. The projects that are done quickly, franchise sort of businesses, McDonald's, Jollibee, they were built very quickly here in Barretto. But other projects such as what you're looking at here with that truck in the way, that's going to be Shamboli Pizza someday. Now that building was completed 3 or 4 years ago. It's been sitting unoccupied. So the time it was started to be built till now is maybe 4 years. It's been a long time. And that's typical here in the Philippines. The Shambolis, I hear, is still going to move down here. There was some sort of a leasing problem with their present place, so they had to stay longer there, and there were some complications. But they will move down here eventually. But it's really interesting to watch construction. I see a guy in there right now working. And I thought they were going to open long ago. A couple of years ago, I thought they were going to open. So I check it out almost daily when I walk by, so eventually it will open. When this new store was being built next to the Central Park Reef Hotel, it was fun to try and guess what it was going to be, any new business being built. I try to guess what it's going to be. It's kind of fun. I missed this one. This one was the biggest surprise of all. If I had 100 guesses, I would not have guessed it was going to be a tiles store. Barretto already had 2 big tile stores. We didn't need another one. That was a big surprise. I thought it'd be a higher end, small grocery store, maybe selling special treats, ice cream, sandwiches, treats, special items for tourists, something that the people next door from the hotel would come over and want to buy, fancy drinks, but not a tile store. Maybe they missed their opportunity there. They've been in business for over a year or so, maybe 2 years now, so maybe they're doing okay. Maybe they're getting the last laugh. Another category in this town is if there isn't enough stores of one kind, before long there will be too many businesses of that kind. Bars and restaurants fall in that category, and grocery stores fall in that category. This one was the last one built, G&H. When I moved here 8 years ago, there were 2 grocery stores. One on Rizal Street and Bismarck. I'm trying to get a tighter shot in. Now there are 5. The Rico's restaurant turned into a market. Divvy Mart opened up, and then it became Pure Gold. And then this store opened up. 5 stores. Too many. Unbelievable. There's a new restaurant in town called Tapa King. Being a new restaurant is not unusual, but what is very unusual about this one is part of the hospital. It's actually in the hospital, a franchise eatery. It's the first I've seen at a hospital around here. Take a look. There it is. This is where the orange part of the building is. Part of the brand new medical center. I find that to be very weird. So there you have it, some interesting little random interesting things about this area and my observations. What's in the future for Barretto and Beloy? Well, more of the same, more businesses opening up, because whenever any close, another one opens in its place. More bars, more restaurants. It's quite interesting. If you just drove through this area and knew nothing about it, you just think it's a little town with 2 or 3, half a dozen bars and half a dozen restaurants, maybe. But you'd have no idea that there's a couple dozen bars and a couple of dozen really nice restaurants. It's quite surprising. Of course, it being a tourist area helps to fuel that situation. But there's a lot more coming in the future, some surprises, I'm sure. The one surprise that I would have never guessed is the future of Beloy and the hotel situation down there, with a hotel and condo building being built. That's going to be a huge project that's going to change Beloy dramatically. I'll be able to look from here and see the buildings, Highrise, skyline, crazy. And also I heard from what seems to be a good source that Treasure Island has a big project plan. They plan on a big construction project there, so I'll keep a look at that, and I'll keep checking that out to see what's going on. So that's it for now from this area. So long until next time.